We begin today. This is very difficult to present the Diamond Sutra in a way that is beyond just talking about words. What I've been striving for is through giving you a historical background, a doctrinal background, and a practice background, something to be able to work with. Now, it is me talking about this and forming something as if it's from clay and saying, this is how it's being formed, but you have to take it, and then I'm giving you the ball of clay, and then you form it, but it's not from you forming it from inside samsara, but forming it as if you are a Buddha and you're forming the world, because this is what is being talked about, is that this is the Buddha mind. And so the Diamond Sutra is a very interesting one because it is constantly referring to the Buddha Tathagata. And so it is one which kind of transcends even beyond the Prajnaparamita Sutras to something even deeper. And it's very, very interesting how it works. Now, we've encountered Subhuti, and the last time we talked, Subhuti was looking at the Buddha and seeing how the Buddha was acting during the daytime. And he noticed something, that he interacted with everybody, but his interactions with people were one of perfection. He had patience, he had wisdom, he had his practice, he had energy. All the things of the six paramitas that were there were clearly there. The dana, all of these things were present in what he was doing. And so as he was looking at it, his practice was far beyond the other people that were present. And he wanted to see this in a way in which to try to figure it out. When I was younger, I practiced a lot of Chi Gong. And in the Chi Gong, the masters would come and they would do things very, very incredible. And the people would be very, very surprised at what they did. And it kind of reminded me of a story of this one a master that was able to turn anything to gold. So if you brought him a pen, he could go like this and it would turn to gold. If you bought him a bell, right away it would turn to gold. And so one day somebody knocked on his door, and it was a little young a man, young boy, and he said, yes, do you want me to change something for you? And he said, no. He said, could you tell me how you do it? And when I practiced Qigong, I never was amazed at what somebody did. Rather, I was more interested in how they did it. And so when they did something, I would immediately try to figure out, how did they do that? How, if they moved a person without touching them, how did they move the person without touching them? If they knew something from somewhere else that was happening, how did they do that? If they healed somebody, how did they heal them? And I wanted to sincerely know how that was done. So I became very adept at cracking codes of how to do things in terms of Qigong, and understanding that the mind creates everything. Alas, the only thing with the Qigong was that something that was missing, that I still was seeking, that the Qigong masters definitely did not have. And it wasn't just enough how to create in mind, but what did it all mean? So I would often go to a master, a Chi Gong master, and say to them, why do you practice? What is the meaning of your practice? And they would hem and haw and give not too insightful answers, and ultimately would come up with what I call the Miss Universe response of for the benefit of all mankind, or something along those lines. But I knew, and they knew, that it was a very hollow answer. In fact, they didn't know why they were practicing. This is why I began my search in Chan Buddhism, because it was the thing that made the sense. Why does one practice? There has to be a reason to do this. It can't be just to pick up more and more tricks to impress people and have you held in high esteem because you're able to manipulate reality, or create things, or take things away. There had to be something more. And this is what Chan brought, was this ability to see through what we perceive to be this reality. This was very, very important, that that one should explore. It was not until I heard Master Sheng Yen talk that I was that I began to understand more what this meant. And the first time I heard him talk was a general lecture. And in that general lecture, Master Sheng Yen talked in a very simple way, a very everyday way. But as I heard him talking, and this was the first time I ever had encountered him, I went, yes, this is the way it is. It's so simple. And he was just talking about very mundane things, and carrying on in a very ordinary and mundane way. But there was something special there, something that was a code that was not easily cracked. It was one that was very amazing, something that I really wanted to find out more about. But it was so incredibly simple how he spoke, and the ease at how he spoke, and the way he carried himself. So throughout his lecture, happenstance would be that I found myself actually sitting right directly in front of him in this room full of a couple of thousand people. And I just sat there with my eyes closed and just listening to what he said. And then when he finished, I opened my eyes, and there he was, and he was smiling at me like this. He just nodded at me like that. And that smile and that look was so knowing and penetrated deep into my heart. I knew that this would be the master that I would follow. Chan is just in this way. The happenstances that brought me before him in that day, I was looking for a master, and he was looking for a disciple. But in that moment, his mind met mine in a way that I'd never experienced before. And the generosity and the compassion that was displayed in that moment was really incredible. It is this way that the Buddha is carrying out his everyday duties around Sarvasti, and coming back, and Subhuti is looking at him and seeing it, and he's seeing. Remember, Subhuti was a very strong had a very strong understanding of emptiness. And in fact, his name is refers to this emptiness and this great treasure. So it's very interesting that he comes in this way. And just like I was before Master Sheng Yen, I felt it, but I didn't know where it came from. All I knew was that I wanted to connect with that and in a sincere way. And so Subhuti, in the Theravadan Buddhism, he was considered this very great disciple and foremost in the being of worthy of gifts. And it's very interesting because he came from a family, and I think I talked about it last time, Anathapindika, who was the one that purchased the Jetagrove for the Buddha. And he became an arhat at that point. And what he would do is meditate on loving kindness. This is very, very important here, because he would meditate on this loving kindness. Metta, you've heard that word before. People will do that. Now it's become so boring in some ways in terms of what people will say, like metta. You might as well say, may the force be with you, or whatever. You know, it's lost its true heart. And it's a very interesting term, because metta is a term in the Abhidharma is defined as this loving kindness. So Subhuti was known for this loving kindness. The next term in the Abhidharma is the term karuna. And so this is very, very important. Karuna, that's A. Thank you, Angela. And karuna means the one who has interest in the suffering of others. There is this loving kindness that's displayed, and we get up to the upper levels of the Theravada at this point. And Subhuti stood at this upper level. But there's this term karuna. Now, Subhuti, he understood the emptiness of what the Buddha was doing as he was going through. He could see that because that was the level he had gotten to. But he hadn't gotten all the way yet. So the Subhuti is revered in Mahayana Buddhism for his deep understanding of emptiness. But finally, he went on beyond that in the, I think it was the Sutra of the 8,000 Lines. And he talked about that, this idea of this emptiness, but this emptiness with an understanding of that, of what we consider to be sentient beings, as not being sentient beings, but understanding the delivery of them. He's not there yet in the Diamond Sutra. This is what the Diamond Sutra is giving to him. This is what the Buddha is explaining. He has not deciphered this. This code he has not broken. And he's looking at it and seeing the Buddha. And it is why he's saying this to the Buddha and asking the Buddha about this, because he's feeling it, but he doesn't know about it. All he knows is to be kind to other sentient beings and to kind of let go of this arhatship and transform into a bodhisattva. So how do he's asking the Buddha, How do we control our minds? He doesn't know that. But when he's asking more than just, how do we act like you? How do we really do it? I'm seeing what you're doing, but I still don't have the discipline to do that, nor do I even know what you're doing. I don't understand this. I don't understand mine. This is incredible, absolutely incredible where Subhuti is, because it's where so many of us are at. We get up and we hit this kind of a glass ceiling, and we can't go beyond it because we can't let go of the idea of the cogitating mind and conceptual thinking. And that blocks us from being able to open up the mind to this vast, vast information. In fact, one master, a Chi Gong master that I studied with, he almost had it. He would talk about the total information network. And I understood what he was saying, that being able to access all information. The thing was, he didn't understand the rest of it. So in the end, I would always be talking to him and telling him, Chan is more powerful than the Chi Gong. He'd say, no, Chi Gong is more powerful. I said, no, you really have to see this. And then one day he came back from China and he completely reversed himself. And he said, Gilbert, you were right. The Chan is more powerful. I don't know what happened to him in China, but he was able to break through that ceiling and see this incredible potential of mind that's there. So I'm talking to you, but I'm also talking to your heart, and I'm trying to get you into Subhuti's mind at this point where he doesn't really understand. But what is it that he doesn't understand? He understands emptiness at this point. And but he really doesn't understand what or why the Buddha is doing that. He knows there's something beyond what even he's feeling, and he doesn't know how to control the mind. This is a very, very important aspect of this in terms of his question, is how do we control the mind? And in this way, when he's talking about controlling the mind, he's not simply saying to sit on a cushion and meditate and follow your method. He's looking much deeper than that. This is not a samsaric question. It's an esoteric question as to what is it? I see you extended, but it doesn't make sense to me. You're the Buddha. I've seen you do so many things. It's very, very incredible what your capabilities are. Yet you walk around like a common man all the time. The only thing is that you know exactly where to put your foot, to place the next step, to say the next word, to think of whatever. As the Buddha turned his awareness to the crowd, he knows exactly when to focus in this way. But why? Why? What is this? If you're here and you want to take us somewhere else, why don't you just take us somewhere else? What is this that you're playing like a human being, but you're playing like a perfect human being? I don't understand this. I don't understand. What is this idea? Do you negate self? Or are you confirming self by acting like a self? Or is it something else? So the Buddha would say, not self, not self. But here you are in this world, and you're subject to the laws of the world. And he would say, I'm in harmony with it. If I'm here, this is how one should walk, one should talk, one should meditate and control their mind. So it's a very deep thing because it's already happened before they go back and listen to him. He's already given this lesson, but they don't see it. They don't see it. So they are there waiting for the Buddha to give them something, some kind of an elixir, a pill, something for them to transcend. And yet he's serving right there in that very, very moment as an example of how one should control their minds. But Subhuti knows there's more to it. He just doesn't get it. So it's very, very interesting because they're using Subhuti here in a Mahayana scripture, and Subhuti is considered very high in Mahayana. But at this point in this sutra, he's serving just like Sariputra was in the Heart Sutra. He's serving as an example of one who's not broken through, one who's not seen what is the essence of the practice, has not been able to accept the turning of the Dharma wheel. And so he, in this stage, is still considered a little bit below someone to bestow this upon. And what is there? What does he stand for? He stands for metta, loving kindness. Subhuti wouldn't hurt a fly. And yet, at this time, let's say in the Dungam cave drawing of Subhuti, he's standing before the Buddha. Let me try to. And you see, he's not very well depicted in the picture. In fact, he looks very old and decrepit. Why? When I saw this picture, I went, why did they do this to Subhuti? Later on, Subhuti's pictures look so much different. But in this one, in the Dungam Caves, his picture, here's a little bit larger picture of that. He's begging, please tell us. And he's standing there. A little bit later on in Tibetan, you see quite a transformation. No, that looks like a better image of Subhuti, right? But in the wood blocks, he's depicted as very old, very almost infirm. This is not a very, probably not good that I can show you, but this is from the Dungam Caves when they, from the 5th century. And you see the Buddha here. Let me see if I can. And so this is the larger wood block. I don't know if you can see Subhuti there. Let me see. It's hard to make it out. He's right here. And then here's the Buddha. And then there's a retinue, and there's like 9 arhats standing behind him. And then he's the 10th one in the front here. And it's very interesting. You see the Buddha appears to be very, very noble looking. So it's interesting how they depict him here. At this time, Subhuti was very old. And so he was, but again, he was considered as a great arhat by the Theravadins and a great disciple by the Mahayanas. But here, they're showing, please, before I go, let me get get this, what is happening. And so, so in this teachings that he had, he was in the Mahayana, he was proponent for sunyata, this idea of emptiness. But here, even though now he's accepting sunyata, he has not transcended beyond sunyata. This is very, very interesting, because the Diamond Sutra is on this cusp of not even being a Prajnaparamita Sutra, that it is tending more towards the Tathagata Garbha Sutras. And as it's leading there, because it's evidenced by the times that they call the Buddha the Tathagata, versus always calling him Bhagavan or World Honored One. Now they're saying Tathagata. So this keeps coming back up. And in this change, there is the idea of the self-nature of mind. And in the self-nature of mind, this transition is one in which is looking at the sentient beings, but hammering home that these sentient beings are sentient beings, but in fact, there's no sentient beings to deliver, because they're all encased in the Tathagata Garbha. The Garbha means womb. And this is very interesting, because there's difference of opinion in terms of what Tathagata Garbha means in this way. Some believe, scholars and Buddha monastics, some believe that it represents the embryo within each of us, that we are that we have the potentiality of a Buddha. Others look at the Buddha womb and say there's nothing outside the Buddha womb, that one is already a Buddha. It just simply hasn't awakened. And it's a very interesting way, because we go back, and this had a great shaping of Chan Buddhism from the northern and the southern school, of one of the term Subitism. And Subitism was the main proponent of that was Huineng, saying expanding the Ekayana vehicle, this one mind vehicle, to that just in this moment, one can be a Buddha. And that one, because one already is a Buddha, we just do not understand that. By the virtue that you're listening to me and recognizing my voice, you're already in the club. You're there. You all are Buddhas. And if you look at things in this way, it makes a big difference, a quantum shift in the way that we look at things. Because when I see you, I do not see individuals. I just see the Buddha heart, the Buddha mind. This is what I see from you. I see that all of you are capable of awakening. And so this idea of Subitism is very, very important. And this is something that has not yet dawned upon Subhuti. He's missing this, that we have this essence of it. And we have also karuna, this interest in resolving the issues. You could say it's as if the Buddha came upon a bed and it was wrinkled. And he would just go and just straighten the bed out, make it nice and flat, uniform. And this is the process of the Buddha, knowing that there's this great metta, but this metta in this case leads to karuna, this interest in straightening out that sheet and settling out and eliminating the suffering that appears within mind itself. This is a very great puzzle, not one easy to give up its wealth, but it is why the Diamond Sutra is presented in its way, in a very, very cryptic way, because it's speaking of something that cannot be directly spoken about. And what it's doing is it's negating and saying, if you think that this is metta to give all of these treasure chests, as many as the Ganges River and those Ganges River grains of sands are treasure chests, reciting 4 lines of the sutra is more valuable. And you go, yeah, right. I mean, 4 lines, what does that mean? That doesn't, I mean, look how much that is. But if you turn the mind's eye inward, the only thing you could say is, so be it. Thusness, it is in this way. We don't have to try to quantify it. It is just in this way that we see things. I was going to go into more Subhuti, but I know we're going to be running out of time. I wish I had like 4 months to teach this class. I could take my time in selecting things, but I just have to kind of give you kind of a greatest hits type of an approach to it and just try to stop your mind from wandering. One of the things in terms of Subhuti here, and there's a story, and it goes to the middle way, and that was that Mahakasyapa, when he went to take alms, his begging, he would always go to the houses of the poor people thinking that they should have more merit. And Subhuti would go to the houses of the rich people because he was afraid that the poor people, it would increase their hardship. The Buddha rebuked them both, saying that collecting the alms should be done indiscriminately. And this is towards the middle way when we understand this. And this is showing a great emphasis in the Diamond Sutra of the middle way, and looking at things in this way. So it's kind of an interesting thing in terms of this. And one other point about Subhuti was there was a story of Subhuti. This turned out later to be a goan, a public statement that one uses to try to sort through. But it's very interesting because it reflects in some ways the Diamond Sutra, where Subhuti was resting underneath a tree, and all of a sudden all these flowers came raining down on him. And Subhuti looked up, and there were these gods, and they said, "We're praising you for your discourse on emptiness." And you remember we were talking about this, I think last week, with Manjusri and Vilamakruti, where Manjusri said there was no words, and then to describe this. And when Vilamakrudi's time came and they asked him, he didn't say anything. So in this one, they're saying, "We're praising your discourse on emptiness," and they whispered it to him. And then Subhuti said, "But I haven't spoken of emptiness." And they said, "You have not spoken of emptiness. We have not heard emptiness." The God said, "This is true emptiness." And so then all the flowers came down. And so it's a way of looking at things beyond words. It is the same as Mahaskasyapa receiving the message from the Buddha when the Buddha twirled his flower. So again, this is beyond words. It is where all of a sudden, all of this doctrinal information comes in, and Chan is there. Chan is being born of all of this type of a practice, and it's something that's very important. I want it. Let me see if I have it. Maybe I don't. I didn't bring it down with me. We'll continue that. I have 20 minutes to talk about the sutra itself. Now, you're going to hear the word Mahasava in the practice, or excuse me, in the sutra. And Mahasava originally was referring to a lion, a great lion. And then later it was used to say a great practitioner is a Mahasava, such as Manjusri, Samantabhadra, Guanyin, Pusa. And so it meant above the rest that they are a great practitioner. And what made them great is the vow to stay as a bodhisattva until all are delivered. And this is the great vow that they have generated. And we talked about this in another class on a Monday night about Guanyin Pusa and the meaning of how Guanyin now had. You see some of the statues of Guanyin as being 8-headed, and many arms and many eyes, because of the incredible task and the realization that there's so many sentient beings. But yet this great vow is to undertake that and to be able to carry forth with these vows. This is represented in the Diamond Sutra in incalculable ways. We cannot think about that. It's just that we begin the steps to go forward with it and using our vows. Again, Master Sheng Yen defined it in this way: a person with a vow to break is a bodhisattva. A person without a vow to break is a non-practitioner. We are practitioners. So we put ourselves on this course. And this is what the Diamond Sutra is showing. And it's showing from the very beginning how this course has worked in the ordinary and mundane world. So we continue. It said, one day before noon, the Bhagavan put on his patch robe and picked up his bowl and entered the capital of Sarvasti for offerings. The word of offerings in Sanskrit is pinda, which means like a lump. So somebody's going somewhere and somebody gives them a pinda, boom, pinda, there you are. That's what you get, you know, and so it's a lump of food. The idea of the robe and especially the bowl is an idea of humility, that one is begging for food. Now you, after you're finished here, go to your neighbor's house and knock on the door with a bowl and beg for food. How would you feel? How would your neighbors feel? And how would your nose feel when they slam the door on your face? Very interesting, right? It's a change of perspective, that one lowers themselves to be dependent upon others for their existence, to beg for the food. How would you beg for the food? Would you be, or would you be noble about it? Would you be afraid? Or would you be looking like a trick-or-treater on Halloween? What kind of candy did I get? Could you do it in the way that the Buddha begged for food? It didn't matter. Whatever they put in the bowl, it didn't matter to him. The sublimeness of him would remain. Could you do this? This is what Subhuti is looking at. Going, wow. I mean, there's not even a trace of discrimination in what he's doing. And he's out there begging for food. And he looks like a noble lion. Very amazing. So it's very funny because I have to thank Red Pine for this, because the whole Diamond Sutra can be taught from the very first chapter. It's just absolutely amazing. Now, the Buddha would go and he'd eat only one daily meal before lunch. It was interesting because they'd said that the heaven dwellers would eat in the morning, and then the regular people would eat before noon. No, in terms of the way that they practice. So this is why they're saying before noon, and it's setting the time in which he's eating that, just like everybody else. And so after begging for food in the city and eating his meal of rice, he returned to his daily round in the afternoon. He put his robe and bowl away. So he was out in the city, so he had a different robe, and he put those away. He did not need them anymore. He washed his feet, because in those days, the bhikshu did not use sandals. They walked barefooted. And so as a result, before he came into where he was at, he would wash his feet and take away all of the dirt that was there that had accumulated in the city, so he didn't make the floors soiled. And he sat down at his appointed seat. So right in front, when we have a retreat, there's a place where the master or the presenter sits, and that's his appointed seat. After crossing his legs and adjusting his body, so he's now changing into the mode of a presenter of the Dharma. He already knows what's going to happen. He's just doing that for our benefit and showing us how to control the mind. And then he turned his awareness to what was before him. So he knows, okay, this is a time, just as I turn my awareness towards you. I'm not thinking about what happened before or what I'll do afterwards. The awareness is just here. Doesn't mean that I'm not aware of things around. If people have passed by, or the howling of the wind through the windows, or whatever, it just means that his awareness is right here where it should be. And Subhuti's looking at this going, this is amazing, absolutely amazing. And so in this particular verse, Red Pine was saying that the 6 paramitas or perfections were already displayed. One being charity of going to beg for food. The other is morality by donning his robe. Begging in the city is forbearance. Sometimes we refer to it as patience, and forbearance is just accepting what's coming. Okay, so if somebody put in some very burnt rice or spoiled rice, he would accept it. Vigor, the energy to practice and to practice for others. The meditation, so he's beginning to sit in a position for meditation, and this wisdom of what he's about to impart to others. Then we get to the next part. A number of bhikshus came up to where the Bhagavan was sitting. After touching their heads to his feet, then they circumambulated around him for 3 times. And so they turn to the left, and then they circle around him in this way. And so you'd have to picture it, that they would be there and they would be keeping this shoulder towards the Buddha. And this is their honoring of him and the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So this is a veneration that they give. We have a little bit of time for chapter 2. I'm going to read the whole verse and then we'll come back to it so you get it and complete first. On this occasion, Venerable Subhuti was also present in the assembly. Rising from his seat, he uncovered one shoulder and touched his right knee to the ground. Pressing his palms together and bowing to the Buddha, he said, "It is rare, Bhagavan, most rare. Indeed, Sugata, how the Tathagata, the Arhat, the fully enlightened one, blesses fearless bodhisattvas with the best of his blessings. And it is rare, Bhagavan, how the Tathagata, the Arhat, the fully enlightened one, entrusts fearless bodhisattvas with the greatest of trust. Even so, Bhagavan, if a noble son or daughter should set forth on this bodhisattva path, how should they stand? How should they walk? How should they try to control their thoughts?" The Buddha told Venerable Subhuti, "Well said, Subhuti, well said. So it is, Subhuti. It is as you say, the Tathagata blesses fearless bodhisattvas with the best blessings and entrusts fearless bodhisattvas with the greatest of trust. You should therefore listen, Subhuti, and consider this as well. I shall tell you how those who set forth on the Bodhisattva path should stand, how they should walk, and how should they control their minds. Venerable Subhuti answered, "May it be so, Bhagavan," and gave his full attention. So in this point, he's asking Shakyamuni to talk about how they controlled their minds. And he's understood this doctrine of emptiness. But in this way, when he saw the Buddha's actions, this perfect realization, he realized there was something beyond emptiness, something that he still had not realized yet. So this is the main reason for this. And the idea here is that this true acceptance of wisdom, of emptiness leads to a deeper wisdom. And so this, when we look at things in this way, such as in the Heart Sutra, form is not an emptiness, not an form, all the way up to mental cognition, we're seeing this as emptiness. And what he still has not grasped is this Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, this highest perfected wisdom, which is in fact no wisdom at all. It is just simply the Buddha heart, the heart of the practice, the Buddha. And he has not been able to penetrate this yet. So here, up to this point, Ananda is making the description of what is happening. Now we hear Subhuti speaking for the first time. So that's why it says, on this occasion, the Venerable Subhuti was present in the assembly. Remember, I talked about how Subhuti was old. So he wasn't always in attendance, but on this occasion, he was. Very interesting, because his idea of this, of Subhuti, the name can mean born of emptiness or auspicious sight. It has been told that upon his birth, his family's gold and silver disappeared from the household, and nobody could find it. And then on the third day, the gold and silver reappeared. And this is kind of a showing this emptiness coming and going, but the gold and silver represent the treasury of the Tathagata Garbha. And rising from his seat, he uncovered one shoulder and touched his right knee to the ground, pressing his palms together and bowing to the Buddha. And that was what we saw in the picture from the Dunham Caves, where the woodblock print is showing Subhuti in a position. And this is a mark of respect, where one keeps their eyes on the Buddha. You don't want to have any furtive gestures or anything. You want to look at the Buddha in a sincere way. You put your palms together, your right knee to the floor, and you bow. And these are the ways one expresses their respect. And this was something that Wei Ning, in his commentaries, the Diamond Sutra, picked out and said, this is how it is done. You bare your right shoulder as well. Okay. The next part is, it is rare, Bhagavan, most rare indeed, Sugata, how the Tathagata, the Arhat, the fully enlightened one, blesses fearless bodhisattvas with the best of blessings. And it is rare, Bhagavan, how the Tathagata, the Arhat, fully enlightened one, entrusts fearless bodhisattvas with the greatest of trust. Now, this is very interesting because, first of all, he's mentioning the 10 titles of the Buddha in this and making sure he gets all of them in. And the term Sugata means that he's thus gone beyond the mundane world, but the Tathagata means he's come back. And fully enlightened one is because there's nothing that he's not aware of. Can you imagine a mind that is aware of everything in this very moment, aware of everything? If a flea was born somewhere, the Buddha would know about it. If an old person in South America just died, the Buddha would know about it. If a star burst, the Buddha would know about it just in this moment. We cannot know that. It's not possible for us in this dream world governed by what we perceive to be reality. It's not possible. But here in the sutra, we are getting a taste of that, even by the very names that Subhuti is giving to the Buddha. These names represent so much. They're not just thrown out there. They're thrown out there for the purpose of study, but we read them, go, okay, let me get to the next part. No, you don't do that. This is why the Diamond Sutra has been studied for so many centuries, and people are looking at it, and they look at it in virtual awe of what is being written here, picking apart every word, every syntax, everything that's coming up. Why is he saying this? Why is he repeating this? So we look at for instance, where he says that the fearless bodhisattvas, with the best of, he blesses those with the best of blessings. But then it's repeated again that he says that how the Tathagata entrusts fearless bodhisattvas with the greatest of trust. There's two categories here of fearless bodhisattvas. Those who are fully matured and are able to begin to fulfill their vows and are fully realized. So those, he said, those get the best of my blessings. Why? Because they're the ones that are going to be the vanguard to keep going. And those fearless bodhisattvas, those novices, but yet had made that vow. Remember, we talked about Shifu saying, if you have a vow to break, you're a bodhisattva, you're in the club. And to you, he gives the greatest of trust. I know you can do it. No, we have a saying in Spanish, si se puede, means yes, you can do it. And it's more than just the words themselves. It is a conviction, a faith that you can do it. And so he's talking to the two types of bodhisattvas here. You're in the club, you're practicing. If you have a vow. So you're here and the Buddha is entrusting you to say, I will be by your side. I will help you. As long as you practice, I will entrust you, that you can make it. I will facilitate that. That is why Shifu said, you have to formulate this vow to become a bodhisattva. And so in this way, he's showing how great the practice is, and he's showing the support outside of samsara that one is getting. So it's not just simply the Buddha within samsara that is assisting you. All forms of it thus gone and thus come, the Tathagata and Tathagata is assisting you. This is very precious. It's not something that one can just simply pass by and think that this was just a preamble to something else he's going to say. Well, let's get to the meat. When you get to the end of the Diamond Sutra, you go, is that it? And you miss it. You miss it because you didn't take the time to sincerely study it. I'm aware of the time, by the way, Angela. So one commentator on the sutra, let me get to Chang Wei Nung, said that Subhuti sighs in admiration that such rare occasion arises from everyday actions. The Buddha is not attached to the appearance of Buddhahood, but manifests a Buddha's lack of self. The purpose of this entire sutra is to break through self, which the Buddha does without saying a word, and which Subhuti perceives. The Bhagavan is a general expression used in the form of an address to call a person a Buddha, enlightenment, or to indicate his attainment. To call him a Tathagata, or one who appears as truly is to indicate his nature. Very, very important. As the Buddha put on his robe and ate his meal and so forth, Subhuti was able to see his appearance of no appearance. Thus he called them Tathagata. And why did the Buddha appear as a human being? Because he cherished others and does not abandon them. This is great compassion, karuna. But by letting his Dharma body appear as a human being, he's also demonstrated a lack of attachment to forms, which is the essence of the Diamond Sutra. Thus, he instructed others without words. And while wordless instruction represents the greatest wisdom, it also, excuse me, let me read that again. And while the wordless instruction represents the greatest wisdom, it arises from great compassion. So I'll stop there. That gives you plenty to chew on till the next time we come together. And I hope at this general orientation of the Diamond Sutra that you've got a different flavor for it, that it's something, as I had mentioned in the very first lecture, a Rubik's Cube that one continues to turn, but the Rubik's Cube is made of diamonds. And no matter which way you turn it, whichever facets you see, it is clear all the way through. We muddy it up, but we don't have to. We just have to use our fearless practice as a bodhisattva to go forward, and it will work. Okay? Amitofo, I will take questions.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll open up for questions. So you can raise your hand or post a question on chat, and I'll call your name.
Nobody has a question. Come on.
Kitty has a question.
Of course. Go ahead, Kitty. You only have 200 more for this month to ask. Go ahead.
Would you say that you were saying that Subhuti was depicted as an elderly, decaying person at the foot of the Buddha in this Diamond Sutra at the Duahang Cave, and then later on depicted as a very youthful, good-looking person because he had then encountered the great Buddha nature.
Yes, I think it's kind of interesting, and maybe this is my take, but scholars come up with a bunch of baloney all the time as to what they think. So you might as well have my baloney too. In terms of looking at this in the Dungam caves, this was a point where, at that point, you're talking about 500 CE, and so he's still more pictured as Theravadan, and so coming in, but still the Mahayanas want to bring him into the fold. And so trying to bring him into the fold in this way, they first have to show him like someone that still needs some training, some refinement. So I think this is what's happening in the Diamond Sutra. Later on, then he carries this banner of emptiness in a way which is refined. And so that's why I say in the 8,000 line sutra, he comes and now his wisdom is perfected. So yes, I would, this is my way of thinking about it based on the time period that was there. You have to understand during this time period, there was also Vasubandhu and his half-brother Asanga, and Vasubandhu was a very big proponent for the Abhidharma and wrote some very, very deep commentary on the Abhidharma. And then all of a sudden, with his half-brother, convinced him to look into and begin to study the Yogacara school, where the Abhidharma was everything is real, everything in this it exists, and thus it's mine. Went to Yogacara school, which said that everything is nothing but consciousness, and so that which is the mind only school, which gave birth to the way Shulin of the Chinese took it, and so it's very interesting because he came across, and what they're trying to do is bring all of these masters that were right at the cusp of Theravada or Mahayana, and they brought them in. And it was very interesting. And even up to this present day, there's people making arguments, more from the Theravadan side, that there were two Vasubandhus. And so you have to see everything in this light where everything is moving, and all of a sudden Vasubandhu is seen as now a proponent for Mahayana Buddhism. And the Theravadins go, no, you can't. It was an analogous to when in present day, LeBron James was in Cleveland, and all of a sudden he announced he was going to take his talents to Miami. And the people in Cleveland were so upset. How could he possibly do that? Well, then they say, well, there's two LeBron James. We've got one and they've got one. And which didn't happen. But what I'm doing is trying to give you a historical context along with the doctrinal side so that you can see there is this quantum shift moving over to the Mahayana school. So it's very, very fascinating how it works in this way. But these were major players, major philosophers in Theravadan that shifted over. So Mahayana was just kind of playing like a Pac-Man thing, picking all these up. And so, first of all, Subhuti coming over has to be refined and then revered. And so he was very highly revered in the Mahayana, but we missed this kind of a stage shift here, but it's very important. Okay. So
that's really interesting, Gilbert, looking at it like that, because it also kind of hints at why the Theravadan tradition was perhaps considered to be inferior to the Mahayana, because you're seeing people move from Theravada to Mahayana, and it's seen as the higher tradition in some way.
yeah, I mean, that's why we don't use the term Hinayana, which is a lesser vehicle, and on Mahayana, the greater vehicle. We still refer to it as Mahayana, the greater vehicle, But again, this is kind of like a pinging, because Theravada, the word means study of the elders. And Mahayana was a great shift where in that there was the, I'll probably butcher the word, Sarantika, which was this idea of the reality of things. And the shift, for instance, like Vasubandhu went to this one, which is, I'm gonna kill the word, but let me write it down because it's important. Something along this Swarantika. And so this one was talking about kind of mind only. And so it's interesting because here, the people shifting over, that was a big change. And it literally was a quantum shift in philosophy, because Vasubandhu was so revered by the Theravadins. And his work was very, very incredible. But as he began to look at it, he started changing. And this is very, very interesting, because you have to be able to, what the master say, I think it was Boshan that said, don't worry about progress, but make sure that you can admit when you're wrong. And that was a very, very powerful statement from him, saying, you admit that you have the wrong outlook on something. It's not easy, but we have to look at things in a critical way. So that's all of what we're doing with that. Okay, next one we have.
Next will be Ron.
Yes, Gilbert, Amitofo, just have a question in terms of the relationship between the Dharma Sutra and the 6 parameter. And also my second question is that, can we use Dharma Sutra as the guiding principle, the fundamental, and use the 6 parameter as the methodology so that we can practice every day?
Yes, but as we do that, understand it in this way, that as we use the 6 paramitas, they in and of themselves do not gain entrance to the realization of the mind. If one holds that and follows this path, then this path will not lead to where you want it to go. We use that, we use words and phrases, we use the practices as a foundation, and we build it up and up and up until we, as the masters say, are able to leap off the 100-foot pole. Do you dare to do that? And so you have to do that. You can't pull the paramitas behind you. This is what Hui Ning was making in terms of a difference between him and Shen Shu, where Shen Shu was trying to remove all of the dust, and Hui Ning says, it's right here, right now. All you have to do is see it, and boom. Easier said than done, but the point is that we rely on nothing. And it's kind of almost a double entendre when we say we rely on nothing. What do we rely on? We rely on the emptiness of everything, but yet we don't even rely on the notion of emptiness. That is true emptiness, is that there isn't even emptiness. And so as we practice, it can set the stage. And it's very important to be clear about this, because if you're not, then you're practicing to be a saint. It isn't in this way. That's why Shifu said, if you have a vow to break, you're a bodhisattva. You're already there. You just, are one that the Buddha entrusts, that you can go further. But if you're trying to carry all of this Dharma baggage with you, you will be weighted down. You would not be able to make the leap off of that pole or jump into the void. Okay. Next question.
Is there any more question? We might have time for one more question. One last question.
No question. I'm surprised. This is
It's a lot to digest.
it definitely is. If you, Angela, if you can talk to them about getting some other dates, then
Yes.
we'll set up a continuation of this.
We definitely need more lectures on the Diamond Sutra, and then hopefully we can give you more time. I feel the hour is not really sufficient to cover all the material and the questions, but we really appreciate your teaching. Thank you so much, Gilbert, and hopefully we will have you back very soon.
Yep.
And then have longer periods, and then also longer more dates available.
All right. And anybody inquiring about my health, I've had a sore throat for about 4 days now. So I'm not getting any worse, but I'm probably not getting any better, but it's not too bad. So no suffering there. Okay.
Wish you
So,
fast recovery from your cold.
yeah. Whatever I have no idea. So every day I don't have a voice, but when I come to teach the Dharma, all of a sudden I have a voice. Now my voice is beginning to fade again. So but it's there for the Dharma. Okay.
Well,
So all of you, please practice hard and study the Diamond Sutra. The more you study it, and the more you get ahead of me, the better, because you will find that it will be open up to you in very incredible ways. But you just have to be able to meet it halfway, and it will go in that way. Okay, so practice very sincerely, and you will be rewarded. Okay.
Omitofo. And apparently there is One Heart, One Mind, that you will be giving the lectures on One Heart, One Mind in May. So charting the course of Ancient Chan Master by Gilbert in May. So yeah, so that's coming up. Yeah.
Yeah, that is something that I'm going to present on the Chan Masters, so that you get a flavor of Chan. I've been talking a lot about sutras, and now I'm zeroing back into the masters themselves and how they develop the doctrine and the practices. Okay, and I am taking lemon and tea and honey and herbs. So thank you very much.
Hope you feel better soon. Thank you.